Hey guys, my name is Elizabeth and I am a freelance writer and editor. I'm also a blogger and an aspiring author. If you want to hear more about my story, you can check out the link in the description. But I actually wrote a blog post today about conflict resolution that I wanted to share with the YouTube world, just because it's so much easier to watch a video than to read a book, read a blog post. So if you have a busy schedule and you haven't had time to look at my blog post today, have no excuses. So anyway, so for those who are just meeting me for the first time, I've suffered from anxiety since I was 7 years old. And obviously, since then, it's been about 20 years, almost, not really, but almost 20 years. And I've learned a lot about my triggers. I've learned about what has contributed to my anxiety. And I've dealt with a lot of it. So thank God for that. But one thing that still gives me anxiety to this day that I'm working through is conflict resolution. It's difficult because I am quite honestly a control freak. That is something that, ironically, I can't control. But I really try, and it's difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that people are just different from me, that people have different opinions, and they hurt me without realizing it, or they hurt me intentionally, and I can't fix that. So it stinks, but that's just part of life. So if you're in that same situation, I want to help you because honestly, like my tendency is when I don't agree with somebody, I just want to cut them off of my life. I just don't want to talk to them. I want to just separate myself from them. And while sometimes it's necessary, like if you're in an abusive situation or if the person is hurting you emotionally and and mentally and is making it hard for you to have a healthy life, that's definitely necessary. However, most people are not a threat to you, so you have to deal with conflict sometimes. So, conflict resolution is obviously scary, and I actually described it in my blog as a muscle that you have to deal with. A conflict resolution is a muscle that you have to exercise, and you get stronger as time goes on. Now, I actually have a screw in my elbow, and it makes it very difficult for me to do push ups. So, what I'll do instead of doing like a full 20-minute video, I will do like 2 minutes at a time of a video, or I'll just do modifications, whatever. So the point of that is, when you're dealing with conflict, most people either run from it or people thrive on it. So my challenge to you is, if you're not used to conflict resolution, don't just throw yourself to the lions, but also don't run from it. Definitely take your time and do what's in your comfort zone, do what's a little bit beyond your comfort zone, and test yourself every every so often, so that you don't have to have this control your life. So I've actually came up with 5 points that have helped me in dealing with conflict, and it's amazing how I'm always afraid of conflict every single time. I'm afraid of confronting the person that hurt me. I'm afraid of dealing with people that bother me, that annoy me. And every time I confront the person, every single time, it may not work out the way I expect every single time, but it's never as bad as I think it's going to be. So I want to encourage you that there are steps you can take to deal with the conflict in your life, and you'll do great. So the first step is to remember that God is your defender. Now, I'm a Christian and I have struggled with anxiety, like I said, since I was 7 years old. And looking back on my life, my testimony is that no matter what has happened, summarized, no matter what has happened in my life, through all the storms, through all the happy times, all the sad times, God has been my constant solid rock. And when you have anxiety, you need a constant solid rock. You need something to hold you. And that's why people have crutches when they have anxiety, like when they have like that go-to, that habit, that fix that they can't, like their addiction. God honestly has been that solid rock for me, where I can pray and I know that God is with me. So when I go into a situation where I have to confront somebody about a way that they've hurt me, or to just say like, hey, can we just have a conversation? Like, I'm just bothered by something that happened between us and I want to make things right. I imagine God like going before me, preparing my heart, preparing the person's heart to receive the message I'm going to share with them. And I imagine God walking with me to that person. So when you're facing a situation and you don't want to go alone, know that you're not alone. You can invite God into the situation. You can be praying. You can just imagine God standing right next to you and guarding you. Literally, He has a legion of angels that He can send to protect you, and He Himself can protect you. Psalm 18, David is talking about how the Lord actually protects him from his enemies. And while people who hurt you aren't necessarily your enemies, they sure feel like your enemies when you're hurt by them. You don't want them in your life when they hurt you that badly. So when you're in that situation, you know that God is on your side and He wants to make things right, and He wants to give you relationships that will actually help you grow, because He does not want you to be alone. So the second point is to choose your battles. Now, of course, like, you want to just go full in. Like I said before, conflict resolution is a muscle. Dealing with anxiety is a muscle too. That's a different story. So conflict resolution is a muscle that you need to exercise. But sometimes people think it's necessary to complain about every single time somebody hurts them. I don't necessarily recommend that. I think it's healthy to deal with conflict as it comes up, but there are some things you need to just let go. Maybe your friend's having a bad day. Maybe somebody said something off color that you need to just say, you know what, that's out of their character. It's fine. So, what I would recommend is ask yourself one of two questions, or obviously both questions. The first question is, am I losing sleep over this conflict? Did somebody hurt you so badly that you cannot go on? Did a friend say something bad to you? Did a family member do something to make you upset? Did you feel attacked? Those are all one question, by the way. You have to ask yourself, is this affecting your life? Is this interrupting your personal life? And if it is, then yes, you definitely need to talk about it. If it's something that you're going to get over in like 15 minutes, yeah, you don't really need to bring that up. You can just pray, say, God, like, I don't know why this happened, but I'm just going to let it go. And you let it go. That's fine. The second question I would ask you myself if I was in that situation is to say, is this person close enough to me for me to expose my heart? Because when you are dealing with conflict, you have to be honest and you have to share your heart and how you feel. And that's hard. If you're standing in line and somebody cuts you off, maybe it's not worth it to share your heart with that person. It may be, it may not be. Sometimes, like, I feel it's necessary to complain to a manager about a mean employee. Sometimes people are rude and disrespectful, and I've honestly worked as a customer service representative. I worked in an office. I've worked at retail stores. I know there are bad customers out there. I know there are people that are rude, but there comes a time and place where there actually should never be a time when you're disrespectful. So I digress a little bit, but again, I'm just mentioning that because there is a time and place to stand up when you're never going to see the person again. But sometimes, like, if you know you're never going to see the person again, if you know that it's not going to affect you or affect the people around you in the long run, maybe you just need to let it go. But if it's like a friend, if it's your spouse, if it's one of your parents, if it's like a coworker, a boss, maybe you need to talk to that person, because you're going to be seeing that person nearly every day. If you have a family member that you haven't spoken to, you're going to probably see that person every holiday, or not, and it's going to make the holidays really awkward. So maybe you should start right now before the holidays kick in, because it's kind of coming in a couple of months, and just say, you know what, I don't want to be without you this Thanksgiving. I don't want to be without you this Christmas. We need to talk about this. So the third thing along with that is to not let fear dictate whether or not you should say something. So I've actually heard people say, like, oh yeah, God's just calling me to let it go. And I'm sorry, like, I feel like that's using the God card sometimes, because God calls us to have healthy relations with people. He doesn't want us to cut people off from our lives. He doesn't want us to just not mention it and just distance ourselves from people. And like I said, that is necessary sometimes when you are when you're in an abusive situation or like a destructive situation. You definitely want to distance yourself, but for the most part, people aren't going to hurt you like that. So you have to decide, if you are going to just let something go, you have to decide if that's your fear talking, and you're making excuses, or you really are just going to let it go. Because if you don't deal with it, I'm just letting you know, like, that bitterness will sit in your stomach and you will not be able to talk to that person. And it's going to affect your relationship. Because remember, the whole point of conflict resolution is to deal with the conflict so that you can have better relationships with the people that you love. So that's really what matters. So the fourth thing is to be honest. Now, like for me, that's hard because when I'm nervous, I will tend to I'll tend to forget what I'm going to say. So kind of like just what happened right now. Sorry about that. But you know, I will rehearse over and over again in my head like what I'm going to say, and then I finally stand in front of somebody, and then they're like, "So, what do you have to tell me?" And I'm like, I forgot." Just because it's hard. It's hard to look somebody in the eyes that you care about and say, "Hey, you hurt me, and I'm really mad at you." It's hard because you love the person, but you're also mad at the person. So, um, I would encourage you to be honest. Use I statements. Do not use you statements. Do not attack the person. Do not take the opportunity to be honest as a way to attack the person. Just simply use this format. Talk about what happened and how it made you feel. That's it. It's all you need to do. You don't need to attack the person's identity. You don't need to attack the person's, if they're a Christian, you don't need to attack their faith. Or any other faith for that matter. You just say, hey, this is what happened. This is how it made me feel. And do not be afraid to use words such as, you made me sad. You made me angry. You made me upset. Because it may sound like you're 5 years old again, but that's why they taught us that in kindergarten, because we need to know this for when we're adults. And unfortunately, when we're adults, we forget that we still have emotions and we still have to deal with them, and people can still hurt us. It doesn't matter how hard your heart has gotten or how many walls you put up. People can still come in and hurt you. So you have to deal with them when it comes up, or else you're going to be alone for the rest of your life. So don't let that happen. And finally, this just got real. Anyway, so the fifth thing, and this is the hardest thing for me, is that we have to learn to be open to whatever resolution happens. So, for example, like obviously you want the you want this situation to go in your favor. When you pour out your heart, when you say, okay, like this is what happened, you hurt me, you upset me, I personally want you, the person that hurt me, to just drop everything and say, you know what, you're completely, totally right. I understand where you're coming from completely. I agree with you. I'm going to stop what you did. Like, you're right. I should never hurt you again. I never will hurt you again. You want that to happen. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So, what you need to do is just have an open mind. Just say, you know what, people are different, and people will just have to agree to disagree. And that happened to me recently. Obviously, I want the situation to be different, but sometimes people, again, just have different ways of looking at things, and so you'll hear they may want to talk to you about something that you did to them. Maybe you also have to own up to something that you did, and you obviously want to do that. But again, think about it. Like, for me personally, like, it's hard for me to admit my mistakes. So like, if you approach a situation and you expect the person to just admit that the person's wrong, to admit that he or she is wrong, but you're not willing to do that for yourself, like, I'm not willing to do that for myself. I don't like admitting when I'm wrong. So I would not expect somebody to just go, you know what, you're right, I kind of am a jerk. No. I would not expect that. So what you should do instead is expect that, you know what, they're going to react the way that they want to react, and that they're honestly programmed to react, that they've been raised to react, that they have been conditioned to react, because that's the way we all are. So, in conclusion, I would encourage you to use your faith muscle, to use your conflict resolution muscle, and to just try it. Think about a relationship that is struggling right now, whether it's somebody you haven't spoken to in years or it's somebody who just bothers you today. Think about how you can use any of these 5 points to encourage you to deal with this conflict. And if you have any other points, you can definitely talk about that in the comments below. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your story. I would love to hear any success stories, any situations that even may be difficult or maybe that are still being resolved. I would love to hear about that. So let me know in the comments below. And I totally look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you next time.